Hall is $1.3 million. That accounts for the additional $246,000.
Different color.
I'm
You
sorry.
can barely see it.
Oh, okay. Well, on
Especially
the
on
screen
the
you can
printout,
see
you
it.
can't really tell
Yeah.
what the numbers are almost.
Well, this is your eye exam to see if you can tell the difference
right.
between black and blue.
Yeah.
I see green.
I think.
In a public meeting, somebody lent me their glasses, but maybe if we switch.
Maybe a lighter blue next time.
Yeah, I can't, they're hard. So the 1.3 accounts for the additional 262,000 that was put to City Hall in the revised budget estimate.
Paula, let me ask you a quick
Yes.
question. I noticed that in fiscal year '23, a shortfall for City Hall was $13 million, but the
Yes.
total project shortfall between '23 and '24 is about $3 million.
Yes, so-
3.3, is that because of construction cost or?
So when this plan was put together, the initial estimate that we used for this plan for City Hall, you can see in that first column to the left, was $15 million. And so that was the original estimate for the City Hall project. Obviously, since then, we know that things have changed, and so you'll see on the next page that City Hall's amount is up to $18.3 million, and really that accounts mostly for the additional money we put in for the windows, and so we accounted for that. But the reality is that, and so you'll see that at the end of fiscal year '25, the unfunded would be about $12.9 million, and that's really, right now, City Hall is a moving target. So although we knew we had an estimate, we had to come up with a number in '23, it was about $15 million. But as things have changed, we increase each year the project cost.
Yeah, as we examine the building more, and we can't get off the shelf windows.
And I imagine that this 12.9 might change
Again.
next year as well, right? So,
I think it will.
right.
change.
Yes.
It will.
There's a question mark there
Right.
anymore.
I would, if I was a
But
betting
math
person. I'd
doesn't
say-
work
that.
with a question mark or not available, so we assign it a number. And then you'll see here the plan for the next 2 years, fiscal year '26 and '27, was to continue committing to this plan. And so originally, we committed $5 million. Our intention was to increase that $5 million incrementally each year. And so that's why in fiscal year '26, you see $6.5 million. And of course, that would be based on revenue availability in that year, right? So the plan would be that if available, we would do 6.5. At a minimum, we would commit the $5 million that we talk about each year.
Right.
And then in fiscal year '27, we would also commit the remaining amount for City Hall to fully fund it in fiscal year '27 under this plan. And then we can continue the plan for other projects. Okay?
Okay.
And so this, you've seen this slide before. This is the list of capital projects that we are funding this year and the amounts, new funding, providing new funding to this year, and the amounts by project type. And so total capital equipment, we're funding just under $3.2 million. Facility repairs and improvements, we're funding just over $3.5 million. Historic facility projects, we're funding $2.6 million, and you may or may not see it, but highlighted in green is City Hall, and that's because that amount changed from the July 1 budget estimate. In motor pool, we're funding just over $3.6 million for the replacement of vehicles and equipment. In parking repairs and improvement, we're funding just over $2.8 million. In parks and recreation, in projects, we're funding just over $9.6 million. And again, you'll see highlighted in green the purchase of land, which indicates the additional contribution of impact fees, and Mayor Dorothy Thompson Park, which we increased the funding to $145,000. We were not providing funding this year, so this is new funding for this year.
Will that fully fund that?
That will fully fund that, yes. And then public safety improvements, we are funding almost $3.5 million in projects. That includes a replacement and matrix for equipment. And transportation and roadway, we are funding just over $6 million in projects. Utility repairs, we're funding just over $10 million in projects, and this also includes the additional funding to our sea level rise mitigation program, which will receive just over $4.5 million this year. And but those are restricted funds that are billed for that purpose, for a total capital project funding of $45,191,015, including the motor pool projects. So this budget is based on the maintaining the 5.559 millage rate. And so this will be the same millage rate that we have maintained since 2016, so the 10th consecutive year. This slide breaks out your tax dollars. So this is always an interesting slide to see that our 5.559 millage rate represents 30 cents per tax dollar that our residents pay. Dade County receives 32 cents per tax dollar from our residents' tax bill. The school board receives 36 cents per tax dollar billed to our residents, and the regional is just about 2 cents per tax dollar. So it's always interesting to see that the majority of services come from the city of Coral Gables, but our residents actually pay more to other areas than the city taxes. And that is all I have for my presentation today. The first order that we will take is to adopt the millage.
So I'll read it into the record, and if you'll bear with me, there's some additional required language I need to read. So the first one is an ordinance providing for the levy of taxes for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, fixing the rate of such levy, providing for the segregation and the application of the proceeds of such levy, providing for the separability of the provisions hereof, and providing that this ordinance shall become effective October 1st, 2024. Be it ordained by the Commission of the City of Coral Gables that in Section 1, that in compliance with the Constitution and laws of the state of Florida as now written, taxation is hereby levied upon all real and personal property within the present corporate limits of the City of Coral Gables for tax year 2024, a tax of 5.559 mils, which is an 8.4% increase over the rolled back rate of 5.1281. All proceeds of the collection of this levy to be recorded into the general fund of the city and shall be reserved therein and dispersed, transferred therefrom for the sole and express purpose of paying the necessary operating and capital expenditures of the city of Coral Gables, its departments, offices, and properties for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025. This ordinance does require a four-fifths vote for approval.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Is the mayor here? Did he leave?
He stepped off. He didn't give me a chance
We
to say I'll
we can
entertain a
proceed.
motion.
We can
We
proceed.
can proceed.
He's probably at the clock.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion second.
So we all have to vote together
Concur.
practically.
No, we know that.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Castro,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the second item, and please, if you'll bear with me, because this one will be a little lengthier, is an ordinance adopting the annual budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, providing for the separability of the provisions hereof, and providing that this ordinance shall become effective October 1st, 2024. Whereas the city manager prepared and on July 1st, 2024, submitted to the commission a budget estimate of the revenues and expenditures of all city departments, divisions, offices, and properties for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2024, and copies of such estimate have been made available for public viewing at the Coral Gables Library and the office of the city clerk. And whereas the budget estimate submitted to the commission on July 1st, 2024, in the amount of $283,480,289 has been revised by the city manager to include revenue and expenditure increases in the amount of $1,266,657, bringing the total budget amount to $284,746,946, and that the following summary of estimated revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025 is hereby agreed upon and adopted along with the supporting data relating thereto on file with the Finance Department of the City of Coral Gables as the official 2024-2025 budget of the City of Coral Gables. Total operating revenues, $265,894,017. Total transfers from reserves, $18,852,929. Total revenues, $284,746,946. Estimated expenditures for all operating departments, capital and debt service. Total operating expense is $226,489,724. Capital projects, $41,563,146. Total debt service appropriation, $11,016,090. Total expenditures, $284,746,946. And that is it.
I'll entertain-
So, if I may, Madam Vice Mayor, I have no problem voting on this on first reading today, but I would like to see some changes going into second reading. I personally would have concerns with removing the solid waste positions, as well as the code enforcement position, and I would like to see what the part-time parking position can bring in as far as revenue, because it might offset its own costs. I'm okay with cutting positions, as I had said before, but those are positions that I think they're services that residents have really been looking to enhance. We get code enforcement complaints all the time. I mean, some here on the dais have to be doing code enforcement and submitting code enforcement complaints because of the issues that we have in the community. And as far as parking, I know we are adding a position, but I want to see how we can alleviate some of the concerns that residents have in some of the outlying areas, because most of our concentration right now of our parking team is in the central business district, which is where most of the violations are. But I've had complaints from residents near schools or other areas where we perhaps haven't been able to alleviate that concern. So that's what I would like to see between first and second reading, and finding ways to still focus on City Hall and adding the funding to City Hall, but maybe there's other places that we can move the money from.
So I have no problem having this discussion between first and second. I have discussed and spent extensive time with directors as well as other individuals and the manager and our staff, because we are adding a lot of positions this year, more so than we've ever added before to this budget. And I do think that there are some efficiencies that we can provide and make the job easier for our solid waste workers if we add some additional tools in the toolbox, which, I've shared some ideas with the manager, but, the ultimate decision has to be made by the solid waste director, by the employees themselves to consider those things. That would take a lot of stress and strain, I think, off of the difficulty of the job, especially in the heat, and fewer injuries and less heat stroke, et cetera. So this is, I want to be cautious about what we're doing, because the last thing I want to do is to have a situation where, we're reducing positions because we don't need them. I want to take a step at a time. And yes, we're increasing positions, and yes, we're increasing solid waste workers, and based upon the discussions that I had, the positions that are needed the most are being absolutely filled, and the ones that are, less certain, let's take a test drive between first and second and get the feedback from staff and from the director as to how we can be more efficient and make the job easier for our employees.
And if I can request the manager, maybe we can individually meet with our solid waste director, so that we can discuss these cuts, as well as with the parking director and code enforcement, so that we can each kind of get a grasp on these positions.
Yeah,
Might change our minds. So, I think that it would be good to have those conversations with the folks on the ground who could really tell us what the impact of those positions might be.
I'll have a renewed, discussion. I did have a discussion before I even suggested the modifications.
I'm sorry. I feel that there's a disconnect, and maybe I'm understanding things differently and you're understanding, or maybe they're telling us different things. Is there any way possible that maybe both of us can have a joint meeting with the Assistant Director of Solid Waste?
We could have a
Sunshine
sunshine meeting.
We can-
It
we
could be
would-
noticed for sunshine purposes.
So
You
I
like that?
I don't
No, I have
know.
no problem doing a sunshine meeting, you know, because perhaps that's where the communication.
I think that might be a good idea.
So I don't know if the Assistant Public Works Director will be available in the next couple of weeks to meet. So, but I can speak to a little bit of,
Not only with assistant director, her and maybe some other workers or supervisors, I think
Yeah.
that I've been talking to in that department,
Right.
which have been very, very insightful for me to understand how they work, how they process.
If I may, absolutely, we can set up individual meetings with the commissioners and the staff you want there. Also, keep in mind, I think there's we always have the other option of coming back to commission after this budget is passed and request an additional headcount or increase in the headcount for one specific position or another. So it doesn't have to be the whole year that we're without. We can come back in 3 months, 6 months and say, look, this is what we have, and it's really not working. We have some ideas, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, to try to alleviate a lot of the work for our workforce. But we have the option of coming back and saying, it didn't work, we need to increase a headcount by 1 or 2.
I appreciate that, and, you know, because we like to make intelligent decisions. Commissioner Menendez?
I just, in total agreement with my colleagues, but for me, I want to make sure that the first decision is the right decision. And I think what's being proposed is the right way to do it. A lot of times, let's put it this way. Initially, those positions were proposed. At some point, it was identified as a need. And I don't think anything's really happened in the world to change the fact that at some point, a need was realized or recognized. So I want to do what's right the first time. And yes, and I agree, we can make adjustments as the year goes by, but this is an opportunity. I think the commission and the administration have done a great job working together, going through the budget and focusing on the millage rate and the way it can be used for the good of the community. So this is a great opportunity to really work together and find answers and find solutions. But we are a growing city, and I don't mean from a development standpoint. We're an active city more than ever, and there's need for sanitation, there's need for code enforcement, because we're not shrinking as a city. We are growing in terms of activity. So I want to make sure we have enough people so that we could provide the best services.
Is it possible, this is for the city attorney, is it possible, or is there a will from the commission to do a second workshop? So that way that it's in the sunshine and everybody can work out and leave it specific to the head count?
So legally, it can be done. It's just, you know, and even if just 2 commissioners wanted to meet, that happens sometimes, and we would just notice it as a you know, sunshine meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal meeting. Well, it's always, of course, complies with law, with the sunshine law, which is it must be noticed, open to the public, minutes are kept, but it doesn't necessarily need to require, you know, a big forum necessarily.
I would do it in a more, like you were describing, an informal way, but obviously we follow through
Open to the
rules and
public, of
procedures.
course, yeah.
Because perhaps myself and the vice mayor are available a particular day, we can have that meeting, and our other colleagues can do it another day. The point is gathering the information and having that one-on-one conversation. So whatever flexibility is required, let's be flexible about what we can do.
Okay,
Yeah, and I appreciate the manager bringing up, you know, 6 months from now, after test driving, basically what we're adding in a way of positions, we'll have a better idea of what you know, is this working? You know, or the additional ideas that I've shared with you, and each one of my colleagues may have some ideas. Is that making the work easier and less strenuous and covering the bases that we need to cover? So we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
So just,
1 second here. I just want to clarify that the initial need was 8, right? And I think what Commissioner Fernandez is asking for is to go ahead and.
Well, I want to have the conversation with staff to see exactly where, you know, we add 1 position. Does that mean that we just have 1 person that's off team, or is this team-based? I want to have a conversation to see exactly what the need is, and then if there is a need, then we got to figure it out from the budget. But I agree with the vice mayor. I don't think we should take it from City Hall. I think we need to find another place to find the money, or maybe there's positions that have been open for a year that have not been filled and may not be necessary at this point. I want to do a deep dive into that portion just to make sure that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know, these are services, garbage is one of the most important services. Police, fire, and garbage are the three services that every resident touches on a weekly basis. So I think those are the three that are most important. And revenue generating positions, I think that's something we should contemplate, whether the generation of the revenue offsets the cost of the position. You know, there are factors that need to be factored in. I just want to, now that we kind of have a framework of what this budget is going to be, it's easier, and knowing what the millage is going to be, we can really hone down and say, this is what we want to do going forward. There could be changes in the future, but let's sit down, have a fruitful conversation with solid waste to see what those positions are like, the code enforcement, how that position is going to be implemented, and, you know, we can work from there.
I think, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor. I think I understand what you're asking, Commissioner. So we will, our staff will work a schedule with each of the commissioners to meet, so we can meet with sanitation, parking, and code enforcement, and go over whatever questions and so on in the next week or so.
So I just want to be clear from a budget process perspective. So if you approve the ordinance as it reads today, I have a very short timeline so there's very strict guidelines on advertising. So the advertisement for the second hearing will include the budget that we are proposing at the second hearing will be exactly the same as I am proposing today. If there's any changes to that budget, it will need to be done on the floor
Yes.
at the
Correct.
second hearing.
Correct.
And so just so
On the
so
record.
expectations
Yeah,
are clear,
clear.
I'm going to come back with exactly the same
Correct.
budget. Whatever conversations you have, those decisions will be made at the second hearing, and that'll be part of your final adopted budget at that point.
Right.
Perfect.
But I
Well,
won't
yeah.
make any changes at that
Right,
point.
right. And many of the questions that I have and positional differences, I think we need to do in that workshop, because we really need the director there. We really need, or someone with that capacity there to do that type of reasoning on, you know, why is there that need, given that the actual number of homes that are being serviced has actually decreased. So we need to answer the answers to some of these questions, and we'll cover it in a workshop. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I am sorry, who seconded?
I motioned. Who seconded?
I'll second it. Let's
Came
go.
up. Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez,
Yes.
Commissioner Castro,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
I want to thank everybody who worked making this possible. I've sat through a few of these. This is one of the best we've had in a while, thanks to everybody's contribution and involvement, including my colleagues.
And thank you for taking the time to go through all the different positions and the presentation that you offered. I know we didn't vote on it during the commission meeting, and I had said I wanted to wait until the actual budget to have that discussion, but I appreciate the work you put in.
My
Yeah, no, I felt I didn't want to wait to the last minute. I'm not one of those last minute people.
My vote was yes, but I feel very, very strong that the minimum I will accept is the 2.2 for solid waste. I mean, I've been in
I think
communication with them.
We're all on the same page that we want to review
We're
that.
all there.
And
We're all
we're all
there.
willing to sit down and look into that, and I think that's something that's necessary.
And then the one last important news that I have is that today is Commissioner Fernandez's birthday. So if we can all please,
You want to sing along?
can we, let's sing happy
I don't think-
birthday.
Not a fan of the whole.
I don't think he wants us
No,
to sing.
thank you very much. Let's adjourn the meeting.
That's a better way to celebrate.
Meeting adjourned.